Picture standing at the edge of a vast jungle, your boots sinking into damp earth as the distant call of a howler monkey echoes through the trees. Ahead of you, half buried beneath centuries of vines and roots, lies something extraordinary, a crumbling stone archway, its carvings worn smooth by time. This isn't just any ruin. It's a whisper from the past, a fragment of a city that once thrived with life, laughter, and grandeur before it vanished into legend. Across every continent, beneath deserts and oceans, hidden by dense forests or swallowed by shifting sands, lie the echoes of civilizations that simply disappeared. Their streets fell silent, their stories faded, and their very existence became little more than myth until now. What forces could erase entire cities from memory? Was it war, natural disaster, or something far more mysterious? For centuries, these lost worlds have captivated explorers, archaeologists, and dreamers alike. From the gold-laden halls of El Dorado to the sunken spires of Atlantis, the idea of forgotten cities taps into something deep within us, a longing to uncover secrets, to solve puzzles left behind by those who came before. And here's the thrilling truth: many of these places aren't just legends, they're real, hidden in plain sight, waiting to tell their stories to anyone willing to listen. Today, we're embarking on a journey to 25 of the most astonishing lost cities of the ancient world. These aren't just piles of rubble, they're time capsules offering glimpses into lives lived thousands of years ago. You'll witness temples reclaimed by nature, palaces abandoned overnight, and entire metropolises whose names were forgotten for millennia. Some were rediscovered by sheer luck, a farmer's plow striking stone, a diver spotting strange shapes in the deep. Others were hunted for decades, their locations pieced together like a detective's puzzle. And behind each one lies a question: what happened here? So grab your explorer's hat, because we're about to step into the shadows of history, where every crumbling wall has a tale to tell, and the past is far more alive than you might think. The legend of Atlantis begins with a philosopher's pen 2,400 years ago. Plato described a mighty island empire, brimming with advanced technology and unimaginable wealth, that vanished beneath the waves in a single day and night of misfortune. But was it a cautionary tale, a historical account, or something in between? The mystery starts with its location. Some point to the volcanic ruins of Santorini, where a catastrophic eruption around 1600 BCE wiped out the Minoan civilization, leaving behind eerie similarities to Plato's story. Others argue for the Azores, where underwater rock formations hint at human-made structures lost to rising seas. Then there's the wildcard theory: Antarctica, once ice-free and possibly home to a forgotten culture. What makes Atlantis so tantalizing isn't just its disappearance, it's the whispers of what it left behind. Ancient texts speak of crystalline energy sources, flying machines, and engineers who could bend nature to their will. Were these metaphors, or could Atlantis have achieved a technological leap lost to time? Modern expeditions keep the hunt alive. Sonar scans reveal geometric shapes off the coast of Spain, while satellite imagery picks up strange patterns in the Sahara. Yet every potential clue only deepens the enigma. Theories about its fate range from the plausible to the fantastical: a tsunami triggered by an asteroid impact, a society crumbling under its own hubris, as Plato suggested, or perhaps a dimensional rift swallowing the city whole into myth. The truth may never surface, but that's the magic of Atlantis. It's not just a lost city. It's a mirror reflecting our endless fascination with human potential and the fragile line between grandeur and oblivion. Beneath the peaceful vineyards and modern streets of southern Italy lies a city frozen in time: Pompeii. In the year 79, Mount Vesuvius erupted with unimaginable fury, burying this bustling Roman hub under a suffocating blanket of volcanic ash and pumice. But the very disaster that destroyed Pompeii also preserved it, capturing a single day in the life of the ancient world with eerie precision. Walk these cobbled streets today, and you'll see bread still baking in ovens, coins abandoned on shop counters, and vivid frescoes that look as fresh as the day they were painted. The tragedy unfolded with terrifying speed. By morning, ash had already begun to fall like snow, turning the sky black. By afternoon, a pyroclastic surge, a superheated avalanche of gas and rock, engulfed the city at 100 miles per hour, sealing Pompeii in a tomb of ash. The casts of its victims tell the most haunting stories: a child curled beside their parent, a man shielding his face, a dog still chained to its post. These aren't just artifacts, they're snapshots of real people, their final moments preserved with heartbreaking clarity. Recent excavations have peeled back even more layers of history. Archaeologists uncovered a thermopolium, a Roman fast food stall, still stocked with 2,000-year-old duck bones and wine remnants. In one lavish villa, a pristine fresco depicts a sensual myth involving Narcissus, revealing how freely the Romans celebrated desire in art. Even graffiti survives, from political endorsements to cheeky tavern scrawls, proving some human impulses never change. But Pompeii's greatest gift might be how it shatters romantic myths about ancient life. The city wasn't just grand villas and philosophers, it was full of cramped apartments, uneven streets, and public toilets with questionable hygiene. A bakery's millstone bears deep grooves from donkey labor, reminding us that progress often rode on the backs of the unseen. Every discovery here whispers the same truth: they were just like us, ambitious, flawed, and utterly human. And perhaps that's why Pompeii lingers in our imagination, not as a ruin but as a mirror. Hidden within the rugged desert canyons of southern Jordan, Petra rises like a mirage, a city not built but carved. Its towering facades glow rose red in the sunlight, as if the very cliffs had been sculpted by the hands of giants. This was the masterpiece of the Nabateans, a nomadic tribe who turned this unforgiving landscape into a thriving metropolis 2,000 years ago. What began as a simple stopover for traders became one of the ancient world's most dazzling crossroads, where silk from China, spices from India, and incense from Arabia changed hands beneath sandstone arches. The Nabateans were more than just merchants, they were hydrological geniuses. In a land where rain fell only a handful of times a year, they engineered a labyrinth of channels, cisterns, and dams that captured every precious drop. Their system was so advanced it could supply water to a population of 30,000, even during droughts. Walk through the Sick, Petra's narrow entrance gorge, and you'll still see the grooves of ancient pipes carved into the walls, a testament to their ingenuity. So why did this marvel fade into silence? The answer lies in shifting trade routes. When the Romans mastered sea travel, the caravans that once streamed through Petra's gates dwindled. Earthquakes crumbled its structures, and by the 7th century the city was abandoned, left to the wind and the whispers of Bedouin tribes who kept its memory alive as Al-Khosneh, the treasury of the pharaohs. Then, in 1812, Swiss explorer Johann Ludwig Burckhardt disguised himself as an Arab scholar and convinced local guides to lead him to this fabled ruin. The world gasped at his sketches of temples hewn from rock, their columns and statues untouched by time. Centuries later, Hollywood would immortalize Petra in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. But no film could capture the awe of standing before Al-Khosneh at dawn when the sun sets the stone ablaze. Petra's true magic isn't just in its grandeur, it's in the details. The soot marks above doorways left by centuries of lamps, the graffiti scratched by Roman soldiers, their names echoing across millennia. And the tombs where Nabatean elites rest in chambers polished smooth, their ceilings still bearing the chisel marks of the workers who carved them. This city doesn't just tell its own story, it whispers the secrets of every traveler, trader, and artist who passed through its gates, proving even stone can hold a memory. Deep in the steamy jungles of Cambodia, a stone giant sleeps Angkor, the once mighty heart of the Khmer Empire. At its peak, this city dwarfed medieval Paris, its temples and reservoirs stretching across 400 square miles. The crown jewel, Angkor Wat, the world's largest religious monument, its 5 towers designed to mirror the sacred Mount Meru of Hindu mythology. But this wasn't just a place of worship, it was a cosmic engine where kings claimed divine power and engineers tamed monsoons into a lifeline. The Khmer's mastery of water was their genius. Monsoon rains flooded the land, but instead of drowning, Angkor thrived thanks to a hydraulic network so vast, satellites still map its ghostly canals. Giant reservoirs called barrays fed intricate irrigation systems, turning swamps into rice paddies that could feed 1 million people. Yet this very engineering may have sparked their downfall. Tree ring studies revealed decades of drought in the 14th century, likely worsened by deforestation as the city expanded. Canals silted up, crops failed, and the gods seemed to turn their backs. Then came the slow unraveling. Neighboring kingdoms chipped away at Khmer power. The court abandoned Angkor for safer capitals, leaving the city to the whispers of the jungle. Vines slithered over walls, strangling statues of gods and kings alike. By the time Portuguese explorers stumbled upon moss-covered towers in the 16th century, locals spoke of Angkor as the work of giants or sorcerers too grand to be human. Rediscovery came in fits and starts. French naturalist Henry Mauhot brought Angkor to global attention in 1860, though Cambodians had never truly forgotten it. Clearing the jungle revealed something startling. This wasn't just a collection of temples, but an entire urban landscape with hospitals, libraries, and bustling suburbs. Laser scans from airborne LiDAR technology now peel back the forest canopy, exposing grids of roads and canals that rewrite our understanding of medieval city planning. What lingers most is Angkor's duality, a city both fragile and eternal. Sandstone corridors still echo with the tread of bare feet on pilgrimages, while collapsed walls bear witness to nature's patient reclaiming. In the faces of Bayon Temple's serene stone tower, you can almost hear the question, was this a collapse or simply a transformation? The jungle didn't destroy Angkor, it embraced it, weaving roots and ruins into something new. And perhaps that's the lesson of all lost cities. They don't vanish, they just wait for us to listen. High in the mist-shrouded peaks of the Peruvian Andes, where the air grows thin and condors circle on mountain winds, Machu Picchu clings to the slopes like a puzzle pieced together by the gods themselves. This lost city of the Inca isn't just ruins, it's a symphony in stone, where every terrace, temple, and stairway harmonizes with the jagged landscape around it. Built in the 15th century at a dizzying 8,000 feet above sea level, Machu Picchu's very existence defies logic. How did workers haul massive granite blocks up vertiginous trails without wheels or iron tools? Why carve a city so precisely into such unforgiving terrain? Theories about its purpose swirl like the morning fog. Some say it was a royal retreat for Emperor Pachacuti, a summer palace hidden from common eyes. Others argue it was a sacred sanctuary, its temples aligned with solstice sunrises and constellations the Inca revered as celestial deities. The Intihuatana stone, a carved granite pillar nicknamed the hitching post of the sun, acts as a solar clock, casting no shadow at midday during the equinoxes. Nearby, the Temple of the Condor's rock formations mimic the outstretched wings of this sacred bird, bridging earth and sky. Even the city's layout mirrors the Inca's spiritual vision, the urban sector divided like the cosmos, with plazas representing the earthly realm and temples ascending toward the divine. Yet Machu Picchu's greatest mystery isn't its creation, it's its abandonment. When Spanish conquistadors stormed through the Andes in the 16th century, looting gold and dismantling empires, this mountaintop marvel was somehow overlooked. Was it already deserted, or did the Inca vanish intentionally, leaving no trace for invaders to follow? The absence of battle scars or colonial graffiti suggests the city slipped into silence before the Spanish could find it, its purpose fading into local folklore as the jungle reclaimed its stairways. Then, on July 24, 1911, a Yale historian named Hiram Bingham, led by a Quechua farmer named Melchor Artiga, stumbled upon vines strangling white granite walls. Bingham's sensational accounts and questionable artifact collection made global headlines, though modern scholars credit indigenous guides with preserving Machu Picchu's memory long before his arrival. Today, laser scans reveal even deeper secrets: hidden tunnels beneath the citadel, water channels engineered to sing like birds, and earthquake-resistant masonry so precise a knife blade can't slip between stones. Walking these terraces at dawn, when sunlight spills over the peaks like liquid gold, you begin to understand the Inca's mastery. This wasn't just architecture, it was alchemy. They didn't fight the mountain, they conversed with it, shaping stone to echo the contours of sacred apus or mountain spirits. The result, a city that feels less built than grown, as if the earth itself whispered its design. And perhaps that's why Machu Picchu endures not as a relic, but as a conversation between humanity and the wild, unfinished and echoing across centuries. For centuries, Troy existed only in the pages of Homer's Iliad, a mythical city of towering walls, heroic kings, and a war sparked by a stolen queen. Then, in the 1870s, a brash German businessman named Heinrich Schliemann thrust a shovel into a Turkish hillside and declared he'd found it. His methods were reckless, his obsession bordering on destructive, but he unearthed something extraordinary. Not one city, but 9, each built atop the ruins of the last like layers of a forgotten cake. Troy's strategic position was its lifeblood. Perched at the mouth of the Dardanelles, this wasn't just a city, it was a toll booth for Bronze Age trade. Ships carrying copper from Cyprus, spices from Egypt, and amber from the Baltics all had to pass its gates, making Troy wealthy and vulnerable in equal measure. The famed Trojan War may not have been the decade-long epic Homer described, but archaeologists have found charred arrowheads, shattered walls, and even a mysterious Trojan horse-sized ramp dating to the 12th century BCE. Hints that a real conflict did erupt here, perhaps over control of those lucrative trade routes. Schliemann's greatest claim and greatest scandal was Priam's treasure, a hoard of gold jewelry he hastily attributed to Homer's Trojan king. Later tests revealed the pieces were 1,000 years older than the supposed war, proving Schliemann cared more for myth than facts. Yet his blunders couldn't erase Troy's true significance. Each excavation layer tells a story. Early Trojans traded with Mesopotamians as far back as 3000 BCE. Later, Hittite tablets called the city Wilusa, suggesting Homer's Ilios had roots in real diplomacy. By the Roman era, tourists like Julius Caesar were already pilgrimaging here, proof that legends outlast empires. The debate still rages: was Homer's tale poetic license or oral history passed down through generations? Either way, Troy's legacy transcends archaeology. It's a mirror to our obsession with glory and tragedy, a reminder that even the mightiest cities can fade into myth, only to be resurrected by those who dare to dig. If you stand on the west bank of the Nile at sunset, the river turns to molten gold, and the sandstone columns of Thebes glow as if lit from within. This was no ordinary city. It was the beating heart of ancient Egypt for over 1,000 years, a place where gods walked among mortals and pharaohs built monuments to outlast eternity. Known today as Luxor, Thebes was more than a capital. It was a theological powerhouse, its skyline dominated by the sprawling Karnak temple complex, a labyrinth of obelisks, hypostyle halls, and sacred lakes where priests performed rituals to keep the cosmos in balance. At its peak, Thebes was a city of stark contrasts. On the east bank, life thrived in bustling markets and grand processions along the Avenue of Sphinxes. On the west bank, the dead reigned in the Valley of the Kings, where tomb shafts plunged deep into cliffs, guarding mummies and treasures meant to guide rulers into the afterlife. The rivalry between Thebes and Memphis, Egypt's other great capital, wasn't just political. It was a clash of visions. Memphis, near modern Cairo, was the administrative hub, pragmatic and cosmopolitan. Thebes was the spiritual soul, where every stone whispered of Amun-Ra, the king of gods, whose cult here grew so powerful that priests at Karnak rivaled pharaohs in influence. Ramses II left his mark like no other. At Luxor Temple, his colossal statues guard entrances, their chipped features still radiating authority. But Thebes' golden age couldn't last forever. The rise of Alexandria under the Greeks shifted Egypt's focus north toward the Mediterranean's trade winds and intellectual currents. Temples that once echoed with hymns fell silent, their hieroglyphs fading under layers of desert dust. Earthquakes toppled pillars, Nile floods buried courtyards. By the time Napoleon's scholars arrived in 1798, sketching ruins half buried in sand, Thebes had become a puzzle, one we're still piecing together. Modern archaeology reveals surprises at every turn. In 2020, radar scans detected hidden chambers behind Tutankhamun's tomb walls, sparking whispers of Nefertiti's undiscovered burial. At Karnak, researchers found evidence of a festival hall where drunken revelers celebrated the god Min, proving even the sacred had its wild side, but the real magic of Thebes lies in its resilience. After millennia, the sun still aligns with temple axes on solstice mornings, illuminating inner sanctuaries just as priests once planned. The message is clear: some cities don't die. They simply wait for the world to remember. On the shores of North Africa, where the Mediterranean's turquoise waves kiss golden sand, the ghosts of Carthage still whisper. This wasn't just a city, it was Rome's nightmare, a Phoenician powerhouse whose merchants circled the known world while its generals brought empires to their knees. Founded around 800 BCE by seafaring traders from modern-day Lebanon, Carthage grew into a labyrinth of harbors, its double-ringed ports bristling with warships and cargo vessels carrying tin from Britain, ivory from Africa, and the crimson dye that made Phoenician purple the most coveted color in antiquity. Then came Hannibal, the brilliant, doomed strategist who dared to cross the Alps with elephants in 2018 BCE, a move so audacious it's still studied in military academies. Picture 37 African war elephants trudging through snowy mountain passes, their breath fogging the frigid air as Roman scouts gaped from the cliffs above. For 15 years, Hannibal outmaneuvered Rome on its own soil, winning battles but losing the war of attrition. His story is Carthage in microcosm, brilliant, bold, but ultimately outmatched by an enemy who refused to yield. Rome's vengeance was apocalyptic. After the Third Punic War in 146 BCE, legions burned Carthage for 17 days, its libraries collapsing into ash and its temples reduced to rubble. Legend claims the Romans salted the earth to ensure nothing would grow, though archaeologists debate whether this was literal or symbolic. What's undeniable is the thoroughness of the erasure. Carthage's very name was nearly wiped from history, surviving only in the grudging admiration of Roman historians who called it delenda esti, must be destroyed. Yet like a phoenix, Carthage rose again, first as a Roman colony, then as a Byzantine jewel, and finally as a fragment of modern Tunis, where tourists now stroll past the haunting ruins of the Antonine Baths, their crumbling arches framing views of the sea. Beneath a quiet neighborhood, archaeologists recently unearthed a child's toy, a tiny terracotta horse from the Punic era, its paint still faintly visible. It's a whisper from a city that refused to be forgotten, a reminder that even the fiercest fires can't erase every trace of those who came before. Imagine a city built 4,500 years ago, where streets ran in perfect grids, houses had indoor plumbing, and a sophisticated drainage system carried waste away from every neighborhood. This wasn't Rome or Athens, it was Mohenjo-Daro, the jewel of the Indus Valley civilization, a metropolis so advanced it rivals modern urban planning. Nestled in what's now Pakistan, this ancient marvel was lost to history until the 1920s, when archaeologists uncovered its brick-lined streets beneath layers of silt and time. What sets Mohenjo-Daro apart isn't just its age, it's the eerie modernity of its design. The city was divided into blocks with uniform brick sizes suggesting centralized authority. Homes featured courtyards and staircases to upper floors, while covered drains lined every major avenue, a sanitation system Europe wouldn't match for millennia. At its heart stood the Great Bath, a giant rectangular pool lined with waterproof tar, possibly used for ritual purification. Nearby, a granary with raised platforms hints at a complex economy where surplus crops were stored and traded. Then there's the art. The bronze dancing girl statue, barely 4 inches tall, captures a moment of effortless grace, her arm cocked at the hip, her pose alive with motion. She's not a deity or a ruler, but an ordinary woman immortalized in metal. And that's the puzzle. Unlike Egypt or Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley left no grand temples or palaces. Their power seems to have been collective, their society strangely egalitarian. Even their script defies understanding. Thousands of tiny seals bear cryptic symbols, a language we still can't decipher, leaving their stories locked in silence. So what happened to this urban utopia? Clues hide in the layers. Skeletons scattered in streets suggest violence, but no weapons were found. Soil samples reveal prolonged droughts, hinting at climate collapse. Some theorize the mighty Saraswati River dried up, forcing mass migrations. Others blame invading Aryans, though evidence is thin. The truth may be simpler, a civilization so finely tuned to its environment that when the rivers shifted, the balance broke. Mohenjo-Daro's legacy lingers in the most unexpected places. The grid layouts of modern cities, the concept of zoning, these ideas bloomed here first. Yet the city never shouts its achievements. It whispers them in the precision of a brick, the curve of a dancer's wrist, the quiet efficiency of a drain. That's the real mystery, not how it fell, but how it ever existed at all. Emerging from the Syrian desert like a mirage, Palmyra's golden columns and grand arches once marked the crossroads of empires. This wasn't just a city. It was a cultural alchemy where Roman engineers met Persian silk traders under the watchful eyes of Arabian gods. Known as the Bride of the Desert, Palmyra thrived as an oasis of commerce and diplomacy, its caravansaries hosting merchants who spoke a dozen languages and worshipped a pantheon as diverse as their goods. The architecture alone tells the story of this fusion. Corinthian capitals crowned columns inscribed with Aramaic, while temples to Bel and Bolshemin stood shoulder to shoulder with Roman-style theaters. Then came Zenobia, queen, warrior, and the woman who dared to challenge Rome itself. In the 3rd century, with the empire weakened by internal strife, this fiercely intelligent ruler declared Palmyra independent, seizing territories from Egypt to Turkey. Ancient historians describe her leading armies in person, her strategic mind outmaneuvering Roman generals until Emperor Aurelian finally quashed her revolt. The legends surrounding her fate vary wildly. Was she paraded through Rome in golden chains, or did she live out her days in dignified exile? Either way, her defiance cemented Palmyra's legacy as a city that refused to kneel. Centuries later, another force would seek to erase that legacy. Between 2015 and 2017, ISIS militants turned Palmyra into a stage for destruction, dynamiting the Temple of Bel and beheading 82-year-old archaeologist called al-Assad when he refused to reveal hidden artifacts. The world watched in horror as satellite images showed ancient structures reduced to rubble, a deliberate attack on humanity's shared memory. Yet amidst the devastation, glimmers of hope emerged. Syrian conservators risked their lives to document damage and hide movable treasures. Today, teams using 3D modeling and salvaged fragments work to rebuild arch by arch, a process as painstaking as solving a 2,000-year-old jigsaw puzzle. What makes Palmyra's restoration so poignant isn't just the technical challenge, it's the symbolism. Every reconstructed column stands as defiance against erasure, proof that culture can outlast terror. Digital archives preserve lost details for future generations, while local stonemasons train in ancient techniques, weaving old and new into continuity. Even the desert itself seems to cooperate, as shifting sands occasionally reveal untouched mosaics or inscriptions, as if Palmyra is whispering its secrets back into the light. To walk these ruins now is to witness resilience incarnate, a city that has survived empires, armies, and extremism, yet still refuses to be forgotten. Deep in the emerald heart of Guatemala's Patane rainforest, where howler monkeys roar and toucans flash through the canopy, the ruins of Tikal rise like stone titans. This wasn't just a Maya city, it was a superpower, its sky-piercing temples proclaiming dominance over a network of kingdoms that thrived on trade, war, and celestial wisdom. At its peak around 700 CE, Tikal's population swelled to nearly 100,000, its urban sprawl rivaling ancient Baghdad or Constantinople. But what truly staggers modern visitors isn't just the scale, it's the precision. Every pyramid, every plaza, every stairway was meticulously aligned with the movements of Venus, the cycles of the moon, and the sacred calendar that dictated everything from harvests to battles. The rivalry that defined Tikal reads like a Mesoamerican Game of Thrones. For over a century, the city waged a cold war against Calakmul, a Maya powerhouse in modern-day Mexico. The conflict wasn't just territorial, it was ideological. Tikal's rulers claimed descent from the mythical First Father, while Calakmul's kings positioned themselves as champions of the underworld gods. In 562 CE, Calakmul dealt Tikal a devastating blow, sacking the city and imposing a dark age that lasted 130 years. Stele inscriptions abruptly stop, construction halts. Then, like a phoenix, Tikal roared back under King Jasor Chan Kayawil, whose victory over Calakmul in 695 CE is immortalized in carvings showing him standing atop his captives, the heavens themselves seeming to bless his triumph. Climbing Temple Roman 4 today, the tallest pre-Columbian structure in the Americas, you'll understand why the Maya called this place Yax Mutul, First Mutul. The view stretches endlessly over the jungle canopy, a green ocean dotted with the ruins of lesser temples. At dawn, mist curls around the limestone like smoke from long-extinguished ritual fires. But Tikal's grandeur hides a chilling mystery. By 900 CE, the city was emptying. The last dated monument, Stela 11, was erected in 869, then silence. No invaders' marks, no signs of catastrophe, just abandonment. Modern clues hint at a slow unraveling. Pollen samples revealed deforestation as Tikal's population ballooned, leading to soil erosion and drought. Skeletal remains show malnutrition spiking in the 9th century. Some theorize that decades of warfare exhausted resources, while others point to a breakdown in the divine kingship system. When rulers failed to deliver rains or prosperity, faith in their celestial mandate crumbled. Whatever the cause, the jungle wasted no time reclaiming its territory. Roots split stone, vines swallowed palaces. By the time Spanish friars heard whispers of a place where towers rise above the trees in the 16th century, Tikal had been asleep for centuries. Rediscovery came in fits and starts. In 1848, a government expedition stumbled upon the ruins, but local Maya guides refused to enter, believing them guarded by spirits. Proper excavations began in the 1950s, uncovering treasures like the haunting tomb of King Jasor, his jade death mask still glinting after 1,200 years. Today, Tikal pulses with life of a different kind. Spider monkeys swing through plazas, ocellated turkeys strut across ball courts, and at dusk, the air thrums with the cries of unseen creatures. Standing atop Temple Roman 4 as scarlet macaws streak across the sunset, you realize Tikal never truly fell. It just traded human voices for the whispers of the wild, proving that even the mightiest cities are fleeting guests in the endless dance of nature. Rising from the grasslands of southern Africa like a fortress of whispers, Great Zimbabwe's towering stone walls defy every colonial myth that tried to erase its legacy. For centuries, European explorers couldn't fathom that these ruins, some walls standing 30 feet high, assembled without mortar, were the work of African hands. They spun fantastical tales of Phoenicians or King Solomon's mines, anything to avoid acknowledging a sophisticated medieval kingdom that once dominated the gold trade between the 12th and 15th centuries. But the truth is etched into the very stones. This was the heart of a Shona civilization so powerful, its influence stretched from the Limpopo River to the Indian Ocean. Walk through the ruins today and you'll see three distinct sections, each telling a different story. The hill complex, perched on a granite outcrop, was likely the spiritual center where priests communicated with ancestors through sacred rituals. Below, the great enclosure, a sprawling, elliptical wall decorated with chevron patterns, hints at royal life, its conical tower possibly serving as a grain silo or a symbol of fertility. Then there's the valley ruins, a web of stone homes where artisans and traders lived, their trash heaps revealing Chinese porcelain, Persian glass, and Arab coins. These weren't isolated tribespeople, they were global players, their gold flowing along trade routes that connected Africa to the Swahili coast and beyond. Gold was the lifeblood of Great Zimbabwe. Rivers here glinted with alluvial deposits, and the kingdom's miners dug over 60,000 shafts across the region, extracting ore that would be smelted into ingots or delicate foil for trade. Arab merchants recorded shipments so vast they claimed Zimbabwe's rulers could fill a well with gold. But this wealth wasn't hoarded, it was reinvested. The kingdom's cattle herds, a secondary currency, numbered in the tens of thousands, and their manure-fertilized terraced fields where sorghum and millet fed a population nearing 20,000. So why did this thriving metropolis empty by the mid-15th century? Archaeologists point to a perfect storm of ecological and economic shifts. Tree ring data suggests a prolonged drought parched the region, withering crops and scattering game. Meanwhile, the rise of new trade hubs along the coast like Kilwa Kisiwani drew merchants away from the interior. But perhaps the most fascinating clue lies in the ruins themselves. Excavations show no signs of invasion or sudden disaster. Instead, there's evidence of deliberate, orderly departure, precious objects carefully removed, doors sealed. It's as if the people of Great Zimbabwe simply decided their time here was done, leaving the stones to guard their secrets. Modern science continues to peel back layers of misconception. When carbon dating in the 1950s confirmed the city's medieval origins, it shattered racist narratives that had denied Africa's architectural achievements. Today, Zimbabwe's national flag flies an image of the soapstone birds found atop the ruins, symbols of a past that refuses to be buried. And as the wind hums through the empty passageways, it carries an unspoken truth: civilizations don't need conquerors to fall. Sometimes they choose to walk away, leaving only echoes for us to decipher. High on the windswept plains of central Turkey, where eagles circle over rolling hills, the ruins of Hattusa stand as silent witnesses to an empire that once shook the ancient world. This was the mighty capital of the Hittites, a Bronze Age superpower whose chariots clashed with Egypt's pharaohs and whose laws predated Hammurabi's code. What remains today is a city of echoes, walls that once stood 40 feet tall, gateways guarded by stone lions, and underground tunnels where priests may have whispered secrets to the gods. But Hattusa's true power wasn't just in its stones, it was in its words. Step inside the royal archives, and you'd find shelves groaning under the weight of 30,000 clay tablets, each etched with the wedge-shaped script we call cuneiform. These weren't dry administrative records, they were diplomatic bombshells. One tablet preserves a peace treaty between the Hittites and Egypt after the Battle of Kadesh, the earliest known written accord between nations. Another reveals Queen Pujuhepa's fierce negotiations with Ramses II, proving women wielded real power here. There are even recipes, instructions for brewing sacred beer, and rituals to summon storms, offering glimpses of daily life in a city where the divine and mundane intertwined. The engineering here defied its era. Walk through the imposing King's Gate and you'll notice something odd. The walls curve inward as they rise, a technique that made them earthquake-resistant centuries before seismic science existed. The city's water system was equally advanced, with ceramic pipes channeling spring water through pressurized siphons, technology Rome wouldn't master for another 1,000 years. And then there's the mystery of the green stone, a glowing meteorite-like slab in the temple district, rumored to have fallen from the sky and been worshipped as a celestial gift. But Hattusa's end came as abruptly as a thunderclap. Around 1200 BCE, the city burned, not in isolated fires, but in a conflagration so intense it turned pottery to glass and baked tablets into accidental kiln relics. This wasn't an accident, it was part of the Bronze Age collapse, a perfect storm of invasions, droughts, and earthquakes that toppled civilizations from Greece to Mesopotamia. Among the rubble, archaeologists found eerie, cursed tablets, lead strips inscribed with hexes meant to bind enemies even in death. One chilling example invokes the gods to turn the bones of my foes to water, a desperate plea from a society sensing its doom. Yet for all its violence, Hattusa's legacy endured in unexpected ways. Their treaty with Egypt became a model for future diplomacy. Their legal codes influenced Assyrian and later Hebrew laws. Even their language survived. The Hittite word for water still echoes in our modern water. Today, as wind whistles through the empty Lion Gate and sunlight slants across forgotten temples, it's clear this city never truly vanished. It just folded itself into history's fabric, waiting for us to piece together its story, one cracked tablet at a time. The legend of El Dorado didn't begin as a city at all. It started with a man covered in gold. High in the Andes, the Muisca people of modern-day Colombia practiced a ritual so dazzling, it warped into one of history's most enduring myths. When a new leader ascended to power, they'd coat his body in sticky resin before dusting him head to toe with gold powder. Then, aboard a ceremonial raft laden with emeralds and treasures, he'd dive into Lake Guatavita, washing the gold into the waters as an offering to the gods. Spanish conquistadors, already drunk on dreams of wealth, heard fragments of this tradition and spun it into something grander, a city where gold paved the streets and temples gleamed with precious metals. The obsession that followed was equal parts tragic and absurd. In 1536, Gonzalo Jimenez de Quesada led an expedition into the highlands, founding Bogotá after looting Muisca settlements but finding no golden metropolis. Undeterred, the Spanish drained Lake Guatavita multiple times, recovering a few artifacts but never the imagined hoard. Later, English courtier Sir Walter Raleigh mounted two disastrous quests, the second ending with his son dead in a skirmish and his own head on the chopping block for defying the crown. These failures only fed the myth, pushing El Dorado's supposed location deeper into the Amazon, a phantom city always just beyond reach. Modern archaeology reveals the painful irony. The Muisca did possess vast gold-working knowledge, but not as the Spanish imagined. Their gold wasn't currency, it was sacred, transformed into intricate votive offerings like the famous Muisca raft, a miniature masterpiece depicting the very ritual that birthed the legend. Their real wealth lay in salt mines, a commodity traded across continents, yet invisible to gold-obsessed invaders. 20th century explorers kept the dream alive, sometimes with deadly consequences. In 1925, British adventurer Percy Fawcett vanished in the Amazon searching for Z, his personal El Dorado, leaving only cryptic journals. Decades later, satellite imagery and LiDAR surveys revealed vast, interconnected settlements in the Amazon, cities like Cuhucugu with roads and plazas, but no golden towers. These finds reshaped our understanding of pre-Columbian civilizations, even as they debunked the conquistadors' fantasies. Today, El Dorado endures as something far richer than a fairy tale. It's a cautionary symbol of greed and cultural misunderstanding, a reminder that the true treasures of the past often aren't the ones we're taught to seek. The Muisca's gold was never meant to be hoarded. It was a bridge between earth and the divine, a fleeting shimmer in sacred waters. And perhaps that's the real lesson of El Dorado. Sometimes the greatest myths aren't about what was lost, but what we fail to see when we're blinded by our own desires. Beneath the sun-baked plains of central Turkey, a strange and ancient city slumbers, Çatalhöyük, a 9,000-year-old maze of mud brick homes so tightly packed, residents moved across rooftops like ants on a hill. This wasn't just a settlement, it was a social experiment, one of humanity's first attempts at urban living. Picture a sprawling honeycomb, each clay-walled dwelling sharing walls with its neighbors, their flat roofs serving as streets. No palaces, no temples, no grand plazas, just a labyrinth of equality, where every home was roughly the same size and the dead slept beneath the floors of the living. Step inside one of these cramped rooms and you'd find walls adorned with vivid frescoes, swirling geometric patterns, leopards with bared teeth, and eerie headless vultures looming over headless human figures. Beneath your feet, the skeletons of ancestors curled in fetal positions, their bones painted with ochre, some skulls plastered and painted to recreate their faces, a practice blending reverence and practicality, as families literally built their lives atop generations of the departed. Upstairs, clay ovens belched smoke while obsidian tools, the plastic of the Stone Age, lay scattered, evidence of a thriving trade in volcanic glass sharper than modern steel. What baffles archaeologists isn't just Çatalhöyük's age, but its defiance of expectations. Unlike later cities where power pooled in the hands of kings or priests, this Neolithic metropolis shows no signs of rulers. No grand tombs for elites, no warehouses hoarding grain, just a collective of farmers, hunters, and artisans who seemed to share resources equally. Women and men were buried with equal honor, their grave goods suggesting no rigid gender roles. Even the famed goddess figurines, once thought to prove a matriarchal cult, now appear to be part of a broader spiritual tapestry, where bulls and leopards held equal reverence. Then there's the mystery of the history houses. Certain dwellings were rebuilt repeatedly over centuries, their walls plastered dozens of times, each layer embedded with animal teeth, boar tusks, or human skulls. These weren't just homes, they were living archives where families curated memories in clay and bone. One such house contained 70 human burials, its floor a patchwork of reopened graves, suggesting generations returned to commune with their ancestors. But Çatalhöyük's greatest lesson might be its quiet demise. Around 5,600 BCE, people began leaving, not in a sudden exodus but gradually, as if the weight of collective living grew too heavy. The reasons whisper through the soil. Pollen samples show deforestation and soil exhaustion, while sheep bones reveal a shift from wild game to domesticated herds, a trade-off that may have eroded the communal hunting culture. By the time the last hearth cooled, the experiment was over. No invasion, no catastrophe, just a slow unraveling of the ties that bound them. Today, as drones map the site's ghostly outlines, a question lingers: was Çatalhöyük a utopia or a cautionary tale? Its people thrived for millennia without kings or caste systems, yet ultimately chose to walk away. Perhaps the answer lies in those plastered skulls underfoot, a reminder that even the most enduring cities are fleeting, and that progress isn't always a straight line but a spiral, echoing back to choices we're still grappling with today. Off the coast of modern-day Gujarat, where the Arabian Sea's waves churn with silt and salt, lies a legend-made stone, Dwarka, the golden city of Lord Krishna, said to have vanished beneath the waves when its divine protector departed this world. Ancient Hindu texts like the Mahabharata and Harivamsa paint Dwarka in strokes of myth and splendor, a fortress of towering gates, opulent palaces, and streets lined with gems, all built on reclaimed land after Krishna fled Mathura. But here's where the story twists from scripture to science. In the 1980s, marine archaeologists probing the Gulf of Combat stumbled upon something extraordinary: submerged stone walls, pottery shards, and even a carved anchor, all dating back at least 3,500 years. The discovery ignited a firestorm of debate. Was this proof of a real Dwarka, or merely a later settlement draped in mythic garb? Dive deeper into the archaeology, and the clues grow tantalizing. Sonar scans reveal a grid-like street pattern eerily reminiscent of the Mahabharata's descriptions. Artifacts hauled from the seabed include a stone slab with a Devanagari inscription and pottery styles matching those from Krishna's supposed era. But skeptics wave caution flags. The site's depth, over 100 feet underwater, suggests a gradual subsidence, not the cataclysmic sinking described in texts. Carbon dating swings wildly, with some samples pointing to the 2nd century BCE, far later than Krishna's traditional timeline. And then there's the geology. This region sits atop seismic faults, prone to land subsidence and tsunamis. Could Dwarka's legend be a cultural memory of a real coastal city, lost to rising seas or earthquakes? The spiritual resonance complicates the search. For millions of Hindus, Dwarka isn't just archaeology, it's theology. The city's drowning symbolizes Krishna's departure from earth, a divine withdrawal that marked the end of an era. Pilgrims still flock to modern Dwarka's towering temple, where priests preserve rituals unchanged for centuries. This duality, faith versus empiricism, fuels lively academic clashes. Some scholars argue the underwater ruins represent a later port city that borrowed Krishna's legacy to bolster its prestige. Others see echoes of a Harappan-era settlement, its collapse folded into myth over millennia. Yet the most haunting evidence might lie in the silence. Marine excavations have yet to uncover the sprawling metropolis of legend, no golden spires or jeweled thrones. Instead, they find a humbler truth, a working harbor, its structures battered by tides, its artifacts speaking of trade and daily life. Perhaps Dwarka's real magic lies in this interplay of memory and material. The stones underwater whisper of a city that thrived, while the stories above the waves speak of a kingdom touched by the divine. Whether history or allegory, the search for Dwarka reminds us that some cities never fully disappear. They simply sink into the space where fact and faith collide. On the sun-baked shores of Libya, where the Mediterranean's turquoise waves meet the Sahara's golden sands, Leptis Magna rises like a mirage of marble. This wasn't just another Roman colony, it was the pet project of Emperor Septimius Severus, the African-born ruler who transformed his humble hometown into a dazzling imperial showcase. Picture a city where the streets shimmered with imported marble, where a harbor complex bustled with ships carrying ivory, olive oil, and wild beasts for the Colosseum, and where the arches stood so tall even the gods might have paused to admire them. Leptis Magna was Rome's African masterpiece, a testament to the empire's reach and the ambition of one man who refused to forget his roots. Severus's renovations were nothing short of obsessive. After ascending to the throne in 193 CE, he funneled vast wealth into Leptis, commissioning a new forum that outshone Rome's own, the centerpiece. A basilica so lavishly decorated, its columns bore intricate reliefs of Hercules and Bacchus, their faces eerily resembling the emperor himself, a not-so-subtle hint of divine pretensions. The theater, carved into a hillside overlooking the sea, could seat 15,000, its stage backdrop adorned with statues of muses frozen mid-dance. But the real engineering marvel was the harbor. Severus ordered the construction of an artificial basin with a lighthouse taller than Alexandria's, its mole built from hydraulic concrete so durable, chunks still jut from the waves today. Trade was the city's lifeblood. Leptis sat at the crossroads of caravan routes snaking across the Sahara, where gold, salt, and enslaved people moved north while Roman glass and wine flowed south. The city's markets brimmed with exotic goods, ivory from elephants hunted in the interior, citrus fruits from Persian gardens, even live lions destined for imperial games. This wealth funded absurd luxuries like the hunting baths, a private spa complex where frescoes depicted leopards and gazelles, their colors still vibrant after 18 centuries. Yet Leptis's salvation came from the very force that buried other cities, the desert. When Arab invasions and shifting trade routes doomed the city in the 7th century, the Sahara's creeping sand swallowed its streets whole. Unlike Pompeii's ash, this gentle burial preserved without crushing. Columns remained upright, mosaics stayed intact, and the Arch of Septimius Severus, its carvings depicting the emperor's triumphal return to his hometown, stood so pristine, 19th-century explorers mistook it for a mirage. Modern excavations reveal uncanny details. A brothel's price list scratched into a wall, an olive press still stained with ancient oil, and a sewer system so advanced it puts modern infrastructure to shame. But the most poignant discovery, a child's marble lost in the gutter of a wealthy villa, its bright stripes worn smooth by small fingers. It's a reminder that behind the grandeur, Leptis Magna was always a living, breathing city, one that thrived, faltered, and now whispers its stories to those willing to listen beneath the Libyan sun. Rising from the Mexican highlands like a dream in stone, Teotihuacan sprawls across the valley with silent grandeur, a metropolis so awe-inspiring. The Aztecs who stumbled upon its ruins centuries later believed only gods could have built it. This was the place where men became deities, a city that once housed over 100,000 people at its zenith around 450 CE, yet left no written records, no king lists, no clear story of who raised its colossal pyramids or why they walked away. Even the name we know it by isn't its own. It's a Nahuatl label bestowed by the Aztecs, who saw in these ruins a divine blueprint for their own capital, Tenochtitlan. At the heart of Teotihuacan stands the Pyramid of the Sun, a monstrous structure rising 216 feet equal to a 20-story skyscraper, its base larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Climb its steps today and you'll feel the weight of its mystery. Who were the laborers who hauled millions of tons of volcanic rock without beasts of burden or metal tools? What cosmological vision aligned this pyramid so precisely with the setting sun on August 12th, a date marking the start of the Mesoamerican calendar? The city's meticulous grid, stretching 8 square miles, mirrors celestial patterns, with the Street of the Dead acting as a terrestrial Milky Way, its buildings positioned to mirror stars and planets. Then there's the enigma of Teotihuacan's people. Unlike the Maya with their named kings or the Aztecs with their warlords, this city's rulers remain anonymous. Murals depict priests in jade masks and feathered serpents, likely symbols of the storm god Tlaloc and the avian serpent Quetzalcoatl, but no individual triumphs. Power here seemed collective, almost corporate, with art glorifying institutions rather than personalities. Even the lavish apartment compounds, some with frescoes of paradise gardens and liquid jade rivers, suggest a society where elites lived alongside artisans in a carefully managed hierarchy. Theories about its collapse chill the blood. Around 550 CE, evidence points to a calculated annihilation. Temples were desecrated, statues decapitated. In the Pyramid of the Feathered Serpent, mass graves hold the remains of warriors, their hands bound behind their backs, adorned with necklaces of human jaws, a grisly offering signaling civil war or invasion. Some archaeologists blame drought, citing sediment layers that show catastrophic water shortages. Others point to revolt, the city's sheer scale may have bred inequality too stark to sustain. Yet Teotihuacan's ghost lingered. The Aztecs pilgrimaged here, convinced it was the birthplace of the fifth sun, the current era of creation. They hauled its sculptures to their capital, mimicking its architecture in their own temples. Today, as you walk past the Plaza of the Three Cultures in Mexico City, where Aztec, colonial, and modern layers collide, you're tracing a lineage that begins in these silent ruins. Teotihuacan never really died. It folded itself into the DNA of empires, a city so potent, even its absence shaped history. Long before Columbus set sail, a group of Norse explorers landed on the windswept shores of a land they called Vinland, a place so rich in wild grapes and timber that it seemed like a gift from the gods. This wasn't just another Viking outpost, it was Europe's first known foothold in North America, a fleeting settlement that would vanish almost as quickly as it appeared. The story begins with Leif Erikson, son of Eric the Red, who around the year 1000 CE followed rumors of a western land from a lost sailor's tale. Sailing from Greenland in a Nar, a sturdy Norse trading ship, Erikson and his crew braved icebergs and open ocean until they reached a coastline of forests and meadows. They built sod-walled longhouses at a site now known as Elance Ox Meadows in modern-day Newfoundland, where archaeologists centuries later would find iron nails, a bronze cloak pin, and even a spindle wall proving Viking women had lived there. Life in Vinland was a mix of promise and peril. The sagas describe encounters with the Skrælings, the Norse term for the indigenous peoples, likely the Beothuk or Dorset cultures. At first, trade flourished. The newcomers offered milk and red cloth in exchange for furs, while the locals shared knowledge of the land, but tensions flared. One saga recounts a bull escaping from the Norse camp, its terrifying bellows sparking a skirmish. Another tells of a Skræling struck down by an iron axe, a weapon far deadlier than the stone tools of the region. These clashes, combined with the sheer distance from Greenland's support networks, made Vinland unsustainable. Within a decade, the Norse packed their longships and left, their dream of a western colony abandoned to the elements. The rediscovery of Elance Ox Meadows in the 1960s rewrote history books. Archaeologists Helge and Anne Stein Ingstad identified the site not through gold or grandeur, but through humble clues: turf walls matching Icelandic designs, a Norse-style hearth, and butternut shells hinting at expeditions farther south. The settlement was small, housing maybe 30 to 90 people, but its implications were colossal. Here was proof that transatlantic contact predated Columbus by nearly 5 centuries, yet it raised a tantalizing question: why didn't the Vikings stay? The answer lies in logistics and luck. Greenland's colonies, already struggling with cooling climates, couldn't spare the resources to sustain Vinland. The Norse lacked the numbers to withstand conflicts with indigenous groups, and without crops like wheat or barley thriving in the short growing seasons, Vinland offered more risk than reward. Yet their brief presence left a mark. Recent studies of tree rings show a spike in cosmic radiation around 993 CE, evidence of a solar storm that may have guided the Vikings by creating eerie northern lights, a celestial breadcrumb trail to the New World. Vinland's legacy is a paradox, a failure that changed history. The Norse didn't colonize North America, but their sagas, passed down orally for generations, kept the memory alive. When Columbus sailed in 1492, some scholars believe he carried maps influenced by these very stories. Today, as archaeologists scour Newfoundland's coast for more Norse traces, Elance Ox Meadows stands as a quiet challenge to the narrative of discovery. It reminds us that history isn't about who arrived first, but about the fragile threads, courage, conflict, and sheer chance that weave the tapestry of human connection. Perched high in the alcoves of Colorado's sheer sandstone cliffs, Mesa Verde's ancient apartment complexes cling to the rock like swallows' nests, a marvel of engineering and adaptability. These weren't just shelters, they were an ingenious solution to survival in the arid Southwest. Around the year 550, the ancestral Pueblones began carving their world into the cliffs, constructing over 600 dwellings using a technique called core and veneer. Workers hauled thousands of sandstone blocks, shaping them with stone tools and binding them with a mortar made of ash, clay, and water. The result: multi-story structures with rooms stacked like puzzle pieces, their walls so precisely fitted that many still stand 8 centuries later. But the true genius lies in the details. Circular kivas, sunken ceremonial chambers, dot the settlements, their roofs supported by intricate wooden frameworks. These weren't just meeting spaces, they were portals to the spirit world, aligned with solstice sunrises and decorated with symbolic murals of rain clouds and cornstalks. Modern Pueblo elders describe them as sipapas, places where their ancestors emerged into this world. Even today, descendants like the Hopi and Zuni return to these sites, leaving prayer feathers as a bridge between past and present. The cliff dwellings peaked around 1200 CE, a time when Mesa Verde's population may have reached several thousand. So why did they leave? Tree rings tell a grim story. A 23-year drought beginning in 1276, the worst in 8 centuries. Crops withered, springs dried up, but climate alone doesn't explain the meticulous way doors were sealed and artifacts left behind, as if the people intended to return. Some archaeologists see signs of social upheaval, burned kivas and defensive walls hinting at conflict over dwindling resources. Others point to spiritual fatigue, generations of prayers for rain going unanswered, eroding faith in the old ways. Climbing the ladders to Cliff Palace at dusk, when shadows stretch across the canyon walls, you can almost hear the echoes of grinding stones and children's laughter. The ancestral Pueblones didn't vanish. They migrated south, blending into new communities and carrying their traditions forward. Mesa Verde's silence isn't abandonment. It's a pause in a much longer story, one where resilience isn't measured in permanence but in the courage to adapt. East of the great Mongol capital of Dadu, where the grasslands of Inner Mongolia ripple like a golden sea, the ruins of Zanadu whisper of an empire at play. This was Shangdu Kublai Khan's summer palace, a retreat where the ruthless conqueror who crushed the Song dynasty shed his armor to host feasts under silk tents, his falcons perched on gloved wrists as musicians plucked horsehair fiddles. Marco Polo, the Venetian merchant who became a court insider, described a marble palace whose halls were gilded with dragons, its walls draped in tapestries of tiger and lynx. But Xanadu wasn't just Mongol opulence, it was a cultural kaleidoscope. Tibetan lamas chanted in pagoda-topped temples, Persian astronomers tracked celestial movements from onion-domed observatories, and Han scholars brushed calligraphy alongside Inca scribes. This was the world's first truly global capital, where East and West blurred under the Khan's tolerant rule. Coleridge's opium dream poem, Kubla Khan, transformed Xanadu into a mythic Eden, a stately pleasure dome, with caves of ice and sacred rivers meandering through forests primeval. The truth, gleaned from excavations, is stranger still. Archaeologists mapping the square-walled compound have uncovered vestiges of a nomadic ruler's dichotomy, one half carefully planned with geometric precision, the other left deliberately wild for hunting grounds where leopards and snow lions were flushed for royal sport. The most haunting find, fragments of blue and white porcelain bearing Persian cobalt motifs, proof of a trade network stretching from the Mediterranean to the Pacific, all converging in this seasonal court. Yet Xanadu's fate was as fleeting as a grassland summer. When the Yuan dynasty fell in 1368, Ming soldiers torched its wooden pavilions, leaving only the sturdy brick foundations. For centuries, local herders called the site Keogan Sum, the White Walls, avoiding it as a ghost-haunted ruin. Modern LiDAR scans now reveal subterranean canals that once fed artificial lakes, their courses matching Marco Polo's accounts of floating palaces towed by elephants. The real magic lies in the contradictions, a warlord's retreat that became a poet's muse, a city of conquest that championed cosmopolitanism, and rubble that still ignites the imagination, proof that some empires never truly fade. They simply trade swords for sonnets, waiting for dreamers to resurrect them anew. Buried beneath the shifting dunes of China's Taklamakan Desert lies Nia, a city so perfectly preserved by the arid sands, archaeologists call it the Pompeii of the East. But unlike its Roman counterpart, frozen in a single catastrophic moment, Nia's demise was a slow surrender to the desert's hunger. Once a bustling oasis along the Silk Road's southern branch, this was where caravans paused to trade Central Asian jade for Chinese silk, where Buddhist monks rested beneath frescoed stupas, and where wooden houses stood adorned with Greco-Buddhist carvings that blended Hellenistic artistry with Eastern spirituality. Step into the ruins today and you'll find sand-blasted timbers still standing upright, their lintels carved with vines and mythical beasts as if the occupants had just stepped away. Nia's most haunting relics aren't its artifacts, but its people. The desert's dry air mummified the dead with eerie precision, preserving faces with high cheekbones, long noses, and light hair, features more commonly associated with Europe than Asia. One particularly striking mummy, dubbed the Beauty of Lulan, wore a felt hat and woolen cloak dyed crimson, her delicate eyelashes still intact after 2,000 years. Genetic testing reveals these individuals were likely descendants of the Tocharians, an Indo-European people who migrated eastward and thrived in the Tarim Basin long before the Han Chinese arrived. Their very existence rewrites the map of ancient cultural exchange, proving the Silk Road wasn't just about goods, it was a highway of genes, languages, and ideas. Trade was the city's lifeblood. Excavations unearthed Kharosthi script on wooden tablets, detailing contracts for camels, disputes over vineyards, and even a heart-wrenching divorce decree. One tablet records a complaint about a missing rug, signed with a fingerprint pressed into the clay, a mundane moment that bridges centuries. But Nia's prosperity hinged on a fragile balance. Intricate irrigation canals diverted meltwater from the Kunlun Mountains to feed orchards of peaches and apricots. When climate shifts dried up those streams, the desert pounced. Sand choked the canals, then the streets, then the very doorways. Unlike Pompeii's sudden burial, Nia's end was a creeping suffocation, its people retreating room by room as the dunes advanced. The rediscovery of Nia in the early 20th century reads like an adventure novel. Hungarian-British explorer Aurel Stein, armed with a copy of Ptolemy's ancient maps, followed whispers of a lost city from local Inca guides. When his shovel struck a wooden post poking through the sand, he uncovered a perfectly preserved household. A hearth still holding charred tamarisk branches, a shattered ceramic jar spilling wheat grains, and a child's toy, a tiny wooden mouse with wheels. Stein's greatest find, though, was a rectangular wooden tablet depicting the Buddhist goddess Hariti, her eyes serene despite the chaos that had swallowed her city. Modern satellite imagery reveals Nia's true scale, a sprawling network of ruins stretching 50 miles, hinting at a metropolis far larger than Stein imagined. Yet the desert guards its secrets jealously. Shifting sands rebury sites almost as quickly as they're uncovered, and political tensions in Xinjiang have made access difficult. What lingers is the uncanny sense of connection. The people of Nia worshipped deities from India, traded with Rome, and spoke a language born in Afghanistan. Their city was a microcosm of the Silk Road's dizzying diversity, a place where continents collided and then vanished, leaving only whispers in the wind and faces in the sand, eternally waiting to be remembered. In the sun-baked hills of northern Algeria, where the Sahara's edge meets the Tel Atlas Mountains, the ruins of Timgad rise like a geometric dream, a city so meticulously planned, it could have been sketched by a mathematician with a ruler. Founded by Emperor Trajan in 100 CE as a retirement colony for legionaries, this was Rome's urban manifesto carved in sandstone, a perfect square grid, its streets intersecting at precise right angles to divide the city into equal blocks called insulae. Step onto the Decumanus Maximus, the main east-west thoroughfare, and you're walking the same flagstones where retired soldiers once strolled, their sandals scuffing against stones worn smooth by centuries of commerce and gossip. Timgad's genius lies in its predictability. Every neighborhood was a mirror of the next, with identical public fountains, bathhouses, and communal latrines demonstrating Rome's devotion to order and hygiene. At the city's heart, the forum buzzed with merchants haggling over African olive oil and Numidian marble, while the theater, seating 3,000, hosted everything from bawdy comedies to imperial announcements. But the true showstopper is the Arch of Trajan, a triumphal gateway so grand, its Corinthian columns seemed to hold up the sky itself. Inscriptions hailed Trajan as the best prince, a propaganda piece in stone, reminding citizens that their prosperity flowed from Rome's benevolence. Yet Timgad's fate took a sharp turn when the empire's grip weakened. By the 5th century, Berber raids chipped away at the city's defenses, while Christian factions repurposed pagan temples into chapels, their frescoes of saints painted over old dedications to Jupiter. The final blow came in the 7th century when Arab conquerors bypassed Timgad entirely, its dwindling population retreating to smaller settlements as the desert crept in. Unlike Pompeii's dramatic burial, Timgad faded slowly, its grand avenues gradually buried under wind-blown silt until only the arch's crown remained visible, a stone hand reaching from the grave. Rediscovery in the 19th century sent shockwaves through Europe. French archaeologists marveled at the city's preservation, calling it the Algerian Pompeii, though Timgad's ruins told a different story, not of sudden catastrophe but of deliberate abandonment. Excavations revealed hastily sealed wells and carefully stacked roof tiles, suggesting a community that left with intention, perhaps hoping to return. Today, UNESCO protects the site as a testament to Roman urban idealism, but wander its lanes at dusk and you'll notice something haunting: the way the grid remains flawless even as the walls crumble. It's a reminder that empires may fall, but their visions of perfection linger, etched into the earth long after the planners are dust. Rising from the mangrove swamps of Micronesia like a ghostly labyrinth of stone, Nan Madol defies logic at every turn. Picture a city built atop a coral reef where canals weave between 92 artificial islets, all constructed from colossal basalt logs, some weighing up to 50 tons, stacked like dark Lego bricks in precise geometric patterns. This wasn't just a settlement, it was the ceremonial heart of the Saudeleur dynasty, a ruling class so feared their name translates to Lords of Deceit. According to oral tradition, the first Saudeleur king, Olasipa, and his brother arrived from a distant land wielding magic to levitate the stones into place. Whether sorcery or sheer ingenuity, the result was a water-bound fortress so impenetrable, even the ocean seemed to obey its rulers. The logistics of Nan Madol's construction boggled the mind. The basalt columns, hexagons, and pentagons were quarried from volcanic plugs miles away on the main island of Pompeii. How they were transported remains one of archaeology's great puzzles. No wheels, no metal tools, no domesticated animals, just human hands and the tides. Some theorists propose bamboo rafts, though no remnants have been found. Others suggest the stones were rolled on log rollers, a near impossible feat given the reef's jagged terrain. The most compelling clue, ancient chants speak of a flying canoe, hinting at forgotten engineering techniques or perhaps a mythologized memory of communal effort. Power here was absolute and cruel. The Saudeleurs demanded tribute from every corner of Pompeii, breadfruit, yams, and even turtles, which were kept in stone pens until needed for royal feasts. Dissenters faced gruesome fates. Legends tell of a rebellious village drowned when the Saudeleurs diverted a river to submerge their homes. The dynasty's downfall came through betrayal. A hero named Isoclecal, raised in exile, infiltrated Nan Madol by disguising himself as a leper, with the help of enchanted weapons, or more likely, insider knowledge. he toppled the regime, scattering the surviving sword allures into obscurity. Today, Nan Madol hums with eerie energy. Locals avoid the ruins at night, whispering of restless spirits and sudden chills in the tropical heat. Underwater excavations reveal sunken tunnels, possibly escape routes or secret passages for the elite. Most haunting of all, the Wall of Heaven, a towering barrier that once shielded the royal quarters. Its stones fit so tightly, not even a blade of grass can slip between them, a silent testament to a people who bent nature to their will, then vanished beneath the weight of their own ambition. On a winter night in 373 BC, the earth beneath the Greek city of Hylike convulsed with such violence, it seemed the gods themselves had turned against it. Within moments, a tsunami roared inland from the Gulf of Corinth, swallowing the entire city buildings, statues, even the towering bronze statue of Poseidon that once dominated its central square. Ancient writers like Strabo and Pausanias describe the catastrophe in chilling detail. Survivors returning at dawn found only a saltwater lake where their homes had stood, the tips of drowned rooftops barely visible beneath the waves. The disaster was so profound, it became a cautionary tale for centuries, with philosophers citing Hylike as proof of nature's wrath against human hubris. Some even whispered that Poseidon, god of the sea and earthquakes, had personally dragged his sacred city into the depths as punishment for defying him. For over 2,000 years, Hylike existed only in legend, until modern technology pierced the veil. In the late 1980s, archaeologists armed with ground-penetrating radar and magnetometers began scanning the coastal mudflats near the village of Rizamilos. What they uncovered was a time capsule of destruction. Pottery shards fused together by seismic heat, cobblestone streets tilted at unnatural angles, and the faint outlines of buildings preserved in sediment like ghostly footprints. But the real breakthrough came in 2001, when divers discovered Hylike's submerged harbor walls beneath 30 feet of water, their stones still aligned as if waiting for ships that would never return. The evidence paints a hauntingly precise picture of that fatal night. Soil cores reveal a layer of marine shells sandwiched between earthquake-fractured rock, a textbook signature of a tsunami. Human remains found in crouched positions suggest some residents tried to shelter in place as the waters rose, while others fled inland, leaving behind hordes of coins and jewelry in their panic. Most poignant are the small clay figurines of Poseidon recovered from the ruins, their faces worn smooth by centuries of devotion. These weren't just victims of a natural disaster, they were people who believed their fate was tied to the whims of a temperamental deity. Hylike's rediscovery rewrote our understanding of ancient seismic events. Unlike Pompeii's fiery burial, this was a city claimed by water and earth in tandem, a double disaster that modern geologists recognize as a hallmark of subduction zone earthquakes. The same tectonic forces that destroyed Hylike still lurk beneath Greece today, making its ruins not just a relic but a warning. As climate change raises sea levels, the specter of drowned cities feels uncomfortably contemporary. Perhaps that's why Hylike lingers in our imagination, not as a myth, but as a mirror, reflecting our own fragile dance with the planet's power. From the jungle-shrouded temples of Tikal to the tsunami-swallowed streets of Hylike, the stories of these lost cities form a mosaic of human ambition and fragility. Each ruin whispers a different tale: Pompeii's sudden entombment in volcanic fury, Petra's slow fade as trade routes shifted, the Indus Valley's mysterious egalitarian collapse. Yet beneath their unique histories, common threads emerge: the arrogance of rulers who believed their power eternal, the delicate balance between civilization and nature, the way even the grandest monuments crumble when water runs dry or invaders arrive. These aren't just cautionary tales, they're mirrors. The same forces that felled Mohenjo-Daro's advanced plumbing or Teotihuacan's celestial pyramids still shape our world today, from rising seas threatening coastal megacities to political upheavals redrawing borders. What lingers isn't just the scale of their falls, but the resilience of their echoes. Carthage rose from salted earth to inspire new empires. Palmyra's shattered arches are painstakingly reassembled by hands determined to defy erasure. These cities remind us that disappearance isn't always an ending, sometimes it's metamorphosis. Petra's tombs became Bedouin legends, Machu Picchu's terraces a dialogue with the Andes, and Nan Madol's basalt corridors a playground for ghost stories. Their legacies persist in pottery shards and half-deciphered scripts, in DNA and oral traditions, proving that no society truly vanishes if its stories are remembered. So here's a question to carry with you: which city's story resonated most deeply? Was it the quiet tragedy of Mesa Verde's cliff dwellings, abandoned with such care, the audacity of Hannibal's Carthage, daring to challenge Rome, or perhaps the cosmic precision of Teotihuacan, where men built mountains to touch the gods? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're all detectives piecing together history's greatest mysteries. And if you're hungry for more deep dives into the past, hit subscribe. Who knows what forgotten worlds we'll uncover next?